Imagine you just got handed the keys to this super cool vintage sports car. It's a beauty, but then you pop the hood and it's like a total mess of wires and ancient parts.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
That's kind of what we're dealing with today, modernizing these legacy software systems. We've got some really fascinating excerpts here from a company called Great Migrations.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They're experts in this whole tool-assisted rewrite thing, and their documentation goes deep into like the nitty-gritty of scoping and budgeting these projects.
Okay.
So think of this as like a crash course in software archaeology.
And you know what's so interesting here is that it's not just about like swapping out some code or something. These legacy systems are often like the backbone holding all this critical data and processes. Modernization is high stakes, you know?
Yeah, like there's that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But reading this Great Migration stuff, they make a pretty compelling case that clinging to those old platforms is actually a huge risk.
Oh, absolutely. They actually found that companies that are sticking with these unsupported platforms had a 40% higher chance of like a major system failure in the next 5 years, which is pretty scary when you think about it.
Yeah, that's a scary statistic.
You've got staffing issues because who even knows this archaic code anymore?
Right.
Then you've got integration nightmares with modern systems.
Yeah.
And then costs are just spiraling out of control. It's just a recipe for disaster. And, you know, it's not just about avoiding disaster.
Right.
Modernization can unlock some serious business benefit. Great Migrations highlights this in their case studies. You know, teams become more agile. You attract top tech talent.
Right.
And your IT systems actually start aligning with your business goals instead of holding you back.
Okay, so we're convinced modernization is essential, but how do we actually do it? Is there like a convert code button we're missing?
Oh, if only. This is where Great Migration's tool-assisted rewrite approach comes in.
Okay.
And it's really fascinating how they debunk the myth of simple conversion. Their data shows that straight conversions often lead to code that's just as messy and hard to maintain as the original. And their approach is really about leveraging this tool called GM Studio, which analyzes the legacy code base, systematically restructures it, and then with the help of human developers, of course, re-implements it on the new platform.
So it's a blend of automation and expertise.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, about something they mentioned in their documentation, this whole convert versus rewrite debate.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's a bit of a false dichotomy.
Okay.
The real question isn't if you rewrite, but how you do it. A well-executed rewrite, guided by the right tools, and a deep understanding of both the old and new systems. That's where the real magic happens.
Okay, so let's say we're ready to embark on this modernization journey. What are the crucial steps involved? I'm assuming it's more than just installing a new compiler and hoping for the best.
Oh, absolutely. Great Migrations lays out a really comprehensive planning process.
Okay.
And it starts with gathering project information.
Okay.
It's like laying the foundation for a skyscraper, you know? You need to know the terrain, the materials, the scope.
So what kind of information are we talking about here?
Well, you've got the basics, project name, timeline, who are the key players, but then it gets more interesting.
All right.
They emphasize the importance of clearly defined milestones.
Okay.
Each milestone acts as a check-in point, ensuring the project stays on track and that everyone's aligned on the progress.
Right.
It's something they call phased validation, and it's been shown to reduce project overruns by 20%.
Wow. So milestones are like those progress bars in a video game, you know?
Exactly.
Keeping everyone motivated and showing how far we've come.
You wouldn't set off on a cross-country road trip without planning your stops, right?
Right.
Same principle here.
Makes sense. So we've got our project basics and milestones in place. What's next on this software archaeological dig?
Now we get into the heart of the system, defining the functional requirement. This is where you figure out what the system actually needs to do, not in terms of code, but in terms of the user experience and the business processes it supports.
So it's about translating business needs into technical specifications.
Precisely.
Making sure the new system actually solves the problems it's supposed to solve.
And this is where you start getting granular. They have this framework, the 4 M's, which stands for match, modernize, migrate, and minimize.
Okay.
It's a way of categorizing each function based on what needs to happen.
Right.
Some functions need to be recreated exactly, match. Some can be modernized with new features. Others can be migrated to different systems entirely, migrate. Right. And some can be eliminated altogether, minimize.
So you're making a blueprint for the new system, deciding what stays, what goes, what gets an upgrade, and what gets sent to the software retirement home?
Exactly. And What I find fascinating is the emphasis Great Migrations places on documentation during this phase. They found that projects with detailed documentation for each functional requirement had significantly fewer bugs during testing. It's about clarity and communication. Everyone needs to be on the same page about what the new system should do and how it should behave.
Okay, we've tackled the what of the system. Now let's dive into the how, the technical requirements.
Great Migrations breaks down the technical requirements into three main areas: legacy code metrics, legacy platform dependencies, and then what they call optional technical requirements. Those are the bells and whistles, the things that can really elevate your modernization project.
All right, let's start with legacy code metrics. I'm guessing this is where we assess the health of our vintage code base. See what we're dealing with under the hood.
You got it. It's like a doctor running tests before a big surgery. You need to know what you're working with. And what I find fascinating is how granular they get. It's not just about lines of code. It's about understanding the structure, the complexity, even identifying dead code and duplicated files. They actually have a tool built into Gem Studio that can automatically detect cloned code, which can be a huge time saver when it comes to rewriting.
So it's about identifying those opportunities to streamline and simplify the code base even before we start rewriting it. Spring cleaning for software.
That's a great way to put it. And then come the legacy platform dependencies. Now, this is where things can get tricky.
Tricky how?
Well, it's about understanding how your legacy system interacts with other systems and technologies. Does it rely on specific hardware? Are there external libraries or APIs it calls? What about those dreaded incompatibilities with modern operating systems? You need to map all of this out. And you know what's really insightful? Great Migrations highlights the often overlooked challenge of data dependencies. Where is your legacy system's data stored? How is it accessed? What format is it in?
Right.
All of this needs to be considered before you can even think about migrating to a new platform. And neglecting those dependencies can lead to all sorts of headaches down the road.
So we've got our code metrics,
Okay.
our dependency map. What about those optional technical requirements? The fun stuff.
This is where we get to dream a little.
Okay.
It's about going beyond just making the system work on a new platform.
Right.
It's about improving its performance, its security, its user experience.
So give us some examples. What kind of goodies can we add to our modernization wish list?
Well, one thing they highlight is refactoring the code for better readability and maintainability. Even with a rewrite, you don't want to end up with a new system that's just as difficult to understand as the old one.
So it's like taking that vintage car, giving it a new engine,
Yeah.
but also organizing the wiring under the hood so the next mechanic doesn't pull their hair out.
I love the analogy.
Thanks.
And they also talk about implementing modern security protocols, migrating to cloud-based infrastructure, even adding features like mobile compatibility or real-time data analytics. It's about taking advantage of the modernization process to make your system not just functional, but truly cutting edge.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Project information, functional requirements, those crucial technical requirements.
Yeah.
We're starting to see the full blueprint for this modernization project.
Right.
But it's not just about lines of code. It's about the people who write the code, the processes that guide them, and the communication that keeps it all running smoothly. There's another crucial aspect we need to talk about, the human element. Because let's face it, software projects, especially ones as complex as this, they're not just about lines of code.
No, they're not.
They're about the people writing the code, the teams collaborating,
Right.
and the communication that keeps everything running smoothly.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Great Migrations recognizes this.
Okay.
They dedicate a significant portion of their documentation to what they call orchestrating the effort. And it's all about managing the people, the processes, and the progress throughout the modernization journey.
All right, so let's dive into this orchestration.
Okay.
Who are the key players on a modernization project?
Yeah.
What does Great Migrations recommend for building that dream team?
Well, they actually break down the staffing model into specific roles, each with its own set of responsibilities.
Okay.
First off, you've got your project manager, the conductor of the orchestra, if you will.
I like that.
They're the ones keeping everything on track, managing timelines, budgets, and resources, making sure everyone's working towards the same goal.
Okay, so the project manager is like the general contractor overseeing the entire construction project.
Yeah.
But what about the technical expertise?
That's where the system architect comes in. This is someone who understands both the legacy system inside and out,
Right.
and has a vision for the desired future state.
Hmm.
They're the bridge between the old and the new,
Okay.
ensuring that the modernized system aligns with the organization's broader IT strategy.
So they're the ones translating the blueprints into reality,
Right.
making sure the foundation is solid and that the new structure is built to last.
And then, of course, you've got your developers, the
Yeah.
builders, the ones who will actually be doing the coding. But it's not just about finding any developer. Great Migrations emphasizes the need for a specific blend of skills.
Okay.
People who are fluent in the legacy technology A&D have expertise in the new platform.
That sounds like a rare combination.
It can be challenging,
Yeah.
which is why they recommend starting the talent search early
Okay.
and considering both internal and external resources.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you might have developers within your organization who are willing to upskill,
Right.
and sometimes you might need to bring in outside expertise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And what's fascinating is that they found that projects with a mix of internal and external developers actually performed better in terms of both time and budget.
Hmm.
It's that cross-pollination of knowledge and perspectives.
So we've got our project manager, our architect,
Uh-huh.
our developers. Who else is crucial to this team?
Now we get to one of my favorite roles, the quality assurance team. These are the unsung heroes of software development, making sure that the new system actually works as intended. They're the ones who design and execute the test plans, find and report bugs, and ensure that the final product meets all those functional and technical requirements we talked about earlier.
They're the ones who make sure we don't accidentally release a system that crashes every time someone clicks the save button.
And you know what's interesting? Great Migrations found that projects with dedicated QA teams from the very beginning had significantly fewer defects.
So quality assurance isn't an afterthought. It's baked into the process from day one.
And it's not just about having the right people on board.
It's also about how they work together. Great Migrations stresses the importance of a robust communication plan. They advocate for a more proactive and transparent approach to communication.
Sure.
They found that projects that used a combination of regular meetings, shared documentation platforms, and even visual management tools like Kanban boards had a 30% higher team morale
Wow.
and a 20% reduction in miscommunication.
So it's about creating a culture where everyone feels informed, involved, and empowered to share their insights and concerns. No more silos of information or those lost in translation moments. Let's talk about automation. We've mentioned this tool, GM Studio, a few times now.
Right.
How much of this modernization process can be automated and how much still requires that human touch?
On the one hand, automation sounds great.
Uh-huh.
Faster, more efficient, less room for human error.
Right.
But on the other hand, software development is inherently creative, right?
Yeah, it is.
You need that human ingenuity to solve those tricky problems and make sure the new system actually meets the needs of the users.
You've hit the nail on the head. And thankfully, Great Migrations doesn't fall into the trap of overselling automation. They recognize that while their tool can handle a lot of the heavy lifting, code analysis, restructuring, even some basic code generation,
Right.
there will always be areas where human judgment, creativity, and problem-solving skills are essential.
So GM Studio is like a superpowered assistant, but it still needs a skilled developer to guide it and make those crucial decisions.
Exactly. And they actually provide a really interesting framework for deciding when to automate and when to involve humans. They call it the 3Ds.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break down those 3Ds for us.
Dull tasks, dangerous, and difficult.
All right, so dull tasks are those repetitive, time-consuming processes that are ripe for automation.
Mm-hmm.
Think data entry, code formatting, running basic tests.
Right.
These are the things that computers excel at.
Yeah.
And they can free up human developers to focus on more complex challenges. No one wants to spend their days manually copying and pasting code snippets.
Exactly. Then there are dangerous tasks.
Okay.
These are the ones that involve a high risk of error,
Yeah.
potentially causing data loss or system instability.
Mm-hmm.
Things like migrating sensitive data or modifying critical system configuration. Automating these tasks can significantly reduce the risk of human error and ensure a smoother transition. And finally, there are difficult tasks.
Right.
These are the ones that require deep expertise, creative problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
and that human ability to understand nuance and context.
Right.
Things like designing complex algorithms, integrating with external systems, or optimizing for performance.
Okay.
These are the areas where human developers truly shine.
So it's about leveraging automation for those tasks where computers excel,
Right.
while recognizing that human ingenuity is still essential for those complex, creative, and high-stakes challenges.
And, one thing they highlight is the importance of training and upskilling your development team to work effectively with these automation tools.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not just about plugging in a robot and letting it do its thing. It's about empowering your team to use these tools as extensions of their own skills.
Okay, so we've got our dream team assembled, our communication lines humming, our automation strategy in place.
Yeah.
But there's one big elephant in the room. What about maintaining the legacy system while all this modernization is happening? It's like trying to renovate your house while you're still living in it.
You're absolutely right. And Great Migrations doesn't shy away from this challenge.
Good.
They call it supporting maintenance releases. And it's all about keeping the legacy system running smoothly while you're building the new one. They also recommend establishing a rigorous process for testing any changes made to the legacy system to ensure that they don't inadvertently break anything in the modernization project. It's also about testing the migration process itself. Great Migrations recommends running pilot migrations, moving small chunks of data or functionality over to the new system to identify any potential roadblocks and refine the process before the big cutover. And this brings us to the next big question. How do you actually transition from the old system to the new one? Great Migrations dedicates an entire section to the transition plan.
Okay.
And they emphasize that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
It depends on the complexity of the system, the level of risk tolerance, and the business needs. But they do outline a few common strategies.
Okay, let's hear them.
One approach is what they call a big bang migration.
Right.
This is where you cut over to the new system all at once, typically during a planned downtime window.
Right.
It's the fastest approach, but it also carries the highest risk.
If something goes wrong, you're essentially pulling the plug on the entire operation.
Exactly. And that's why they only recommend this approach for smaller, less critical systems.
Okay.
Or when there's a high level of confidence in the new system's stability.
So what are the alternatives for those more complex mission-critical systems?
Well, there's the phased approach, where you gradually roll out the new system in stages, migrating different modules or departments over time.
Right.
This allows for more testing and validation along the way,
Okay.
reducing the risk of a major disruption.
So it's like renovating your house room by room. You can still live in the house while the work is being done, and you can adapt to each change as it comes.
That's a great way to think about it. And they also mention a parallel approach, where you run both the legacy and the new system side by side for a period of time, comparing results and ensuring data consistency before fully decommissioning the old system.
This sounds like the safest option, but also the most complex to manage.
You're essentially doubling your workload for a while, and it requires careful synchronization between the two systems. But for those highly critical systems where even a brief outage could have significant consequences, it can be worth the extra effort.
So choosing the right transition strategy is all about balancing speed, risk, and business impact.
Exactly. And, one thing they highlight is the importance of having a rollback plan in case something goes wrong during the transition. A way to revert back to the legacy system if the new system isn't performing as expected.
So it's about minimizing downtime and ensuring business continuity even in the face of unexpected challenges.
Precisely. And that brings us to the final stage of our orchestration journey. How do we know when a modernization project is truly complete?
Is it when the last line of code is written, when the new system goes live, or is there something more to it?
Great questions. And Great Migrations provides a really insightful framework for defining closure criteria. It's not just about technical completion. It's about ensuring that the new system meets the business need, that the users are trained and comfortable with it, and that there's a clear plan for ongoing maintenance and support.
So it's about crossing the finish line, but also making sure that we're well equipped to keep running the race.
Exactly. And they recommend a formal handover process, transferring ownership from the modernization team to the team responsible for the ongoing operation and maintenance of the new system.
Right.
This ensures that there's no gap in knowledge or support, and that the new system is truly integrated into the organization's IT landscape. There's one more aspect of Great Migration's approach that I find particularly insightful, and that's their focus on different modernization strategies.
Right.
They recognize that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. That each organization needs to find the path that best aligns with their specific needs, resources, and risk tolerance. You wouldn't approach the modernization of a small standalone system, the same way you'd tackle a sprawling enterprise platform that's been running for decades.
Okay, so let's unpack these different strategies.
All right, let's do it.
What are some of the options Great Migrations lays out?
Well, one approach they advocate for is what they call incremental modernization.
Okay.
It's all about breaking down a large, complex project into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So it's about setting realistic goals, proving the concept,
Uh-huh.
and building momentum along the way.
And you know what I find fascinating
What's that?
is how they link this incremental approach to risk management. Their data shows that projects that adopted an incremental strategy were 30% less likely to experience those major budget overruns or delays.
That's significant.
It's about minimizing risk by tackling those smaller, less critical systems first, learning from those experiences, and then applying those lessons to the more complex parts of the project.
It's like testing the waters before diving into the deep end.
And they offer some really practical guidance on how to prioritize those increments.
Okay.
They recommend focusing on independent systems first,
Right.
those that aren't tightly coupled with other parts of the legacy infrastructure.
So you're minimizing the risk of those cascading failures,
Exactly.
where one change ripples through the system and causes a whole mess of problems.
It's all about containment. And, it's not just about minimizing risk. It's also about delivering value quickly. By focusing on those smaller self-contained systems first, you can demonstrate the benefits of modernization early on, which can help build buy-in from stakeholders and maintain momentum throughout the project.
Yeah, it's like those quick wins that keep everyone motivated and engaged.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Modernizing legacy software, it's not just about keeping up with the Joneses. It's not just about replacing old code with new code.
Right.
It's about transforming your organization's IT infrastructure to support its strategic goals, to empower its people,
Right.
and to position itself for success in a world that's changing faster than ever.
It's about future-proofing your business, creating a foundation for innovation,
Uh-huh.
and ensuring that technology is an enabler, not a barrier, to achieving your organization's full potential.
And to all those listeners out there who are facing the daunting task of modernizing their own legacy systems, remember this. You're not alone. There are resources, there are experts, and there's a wealth of knowledge and experience to draw upon.
And you know what?
Mm.
It might just be the most rewarding challenge you ever take on. Because in the end, it's not just about the code. It's about the impact that code has on people's lives, on businesses, and on the world around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off.
Yes, it is a huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of software.
Absolutely. Until next time.